Hello and welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Vanessa Kaufman, the director of the Alliance to Stop Foodborne Illness, a program which brings together consumers, industry, academics, and regulators to work collaboratively to advance food safety culture throughout the food system. Because of the US government shutdown, we are unfortunately not able to have the Food and Drug Administration with us today. However, I am immensely grateful to Lone Jesperson, principal and founder of Cultivate SA, who is going to help me moderate our session today. Hi, Lone.
Hi, Vanessa. Big shoes
Hi.
to fill here without our colleagues from FDA. It's going to be a big lift.
I think we'll be able to do it, but we will miss them. And hopefully some are listening in, or at least to the recording. In case you've missed any of our previous webinars, including our season 2 kickoff event, we encourage you to visit our website at stopfoodborneillness.org/alliance/webinar-series, or scan the QR code here to watch the recordings, view the slides, and read the accompanying white papers, which are chock full of real-world learnings. Before we dive in, I do have some housekeeping. Please note that the chat function, microphones, and your cameras are disabled. You will need to use the Q&A function, not the chat, to ask questions of our panelists. In that QA window, you can upvote questions, and the most popular will rise to the top. Like Series 1, Series 2 has been accredited by NEHA, so you can earn 1 continuing education credit from each webinar in the series. The details are posted on the STOP website and will be distributed via email following the webinar. You can also find a recording of today's webinar and a copy of the slides on our website. And please be aware, this webinar is being recorded. It is my great pleasure now to pass the mic over to Lone to walk us through the agenda and give some opening remarks.
Vanessa, thank you so much. And it is always, always a pleasure being on these webinars with you and the team from Stop Foodborne Illness. So for today, I'm just going to put a few opening remarks out there about the topic that we're discussing. Then we have 2 fantastic speakers that have very generously given their time to this webinar. Ghita Hansen from Novonesis, a fellow Dane. Looking forward to hearing from you, Ghita. And then Dr. Bob Reinhard from Conagra Brands. Then, as always, we want to save as much time as possible so that we can get your great questions. It's always good learnings for all of us, I think, Vanessa, and we always have some good conversation across speakers when we go through that. And then some closing comments and the next webinar. So, as you might remember from the last one, Series 2 is really structured around Edgar Schein's in levels of organizational culture. And today we're talking about an element of the underlying beliefs. So we're really into that deep, deep level of what each of us assume and how that impacts what we do every day for food safety. So permit me to just set up a couple of thoughts on that before we hear from our 2 great speakers. So as we look at what are assumptions, if we go to the next slide, please, Lily. I'm not a big fan of definitions, but I think it makes a little bit sense to bring it up here, because when we talk about assumptions, it's really around how those unspoken beliefs and norms and values are shared within a group. Again, remember that culture differs from human behaviors, individual behaviors, that culture lives in groups. And that's also why we talk about social norms. These underlying assumptions are really very often not something that we think about. So it's very unconsciously. So we don't go around thinking about what are my assumptions. So let's look at a couple of examples for that, for food safety. It smells fine, it's safe to eat. This is obviously not how we want to think about food safety, but it is, some consumers think about it that way. And if we just click on to the next one, it's where we make these assumptions that, for example, that these sensory cues are indicators of whether it's safe to eat. With this particular example, I think it's important just to say that the assumption, again, is that we don't go around saying, let me just sniff that food and then we think it's safe. It's just something that some people do because it's how they've always gauged whether food is safe. Then I'm sure that next one that Lily has up there, we've all heard it, we all work with it every day, and we've always done it this way. Many food companies are blessed with having long-standing people that have worked with the company for a long time. And that means that there's these traditional practices that we believe are inherently safe. And that's an assumption that often has to be challenged when we then go in and say, well, the rules of the game for food safety has changed a little bit. And how do we then acknowledge that that assumption is there? If we go to the next one, then it's around one that we hear a lot as well, is that food safety is the responsibility of the quality department. In other words, if I'm in finance, HR, IT, some of those support functions, I don't have a role to play in food safety. And we all know that for culture to change, there has to be a lift from all departments. We have to get rid of those silos so that food safety is truly a shared responsibility. And that takes challenging basic assumptions or interrogating those assumptions. So why is this important to us in food safety? Because when we look at these assumptions, some of the three that I just shared there above, it's really about that it influences our perception of risk. Is this something that's so important that I have to do something different? And that is when we talk about change and we talk about making sense of food safety for everybody, that's where we have to go in and really get detailed and say, so how do we change people's assumptions at the very deepest level so that it also influences their risk perception? Have a read through Edgar Schein's, the latest before his sad passing from 2017. He's got some great references in there and practical examples of how you define and also change assumptions. Really quickly, just 4 steps that I would recommend that you look at when you go to change assumptions. So first and foremost, and you're going to hear from our speakers today a lot about this, step 1, make the invisible visible. So it's back to that unconscious. Some assumptions are more often than not unconscious. So use storytelling. Hey, you're in the company on this webinar of a great group of people from Stop Foodborne Illness who are masters of storytelling. So reach out if you haven't already. And then use that storytelling and use data to really get these underlying beliefs and assumptions to the surface. Use data to reframe. So psychologically, we reframe when we take one assumption and make it something else, and think about how you can use evidence and data to do that. Then it's about embedding some new norms. Think about how leadership is modeling food safety on the plant floor every day and in daily routines. And finally, sustain this by always having some safe spaces where you can have conversations. So think about Gemba walks. How do you go out and actually have conversations with people where the work is happening so that you can learn from what are their assumptions, and you can use that also to reframe some of your own assumptions. So that speed dating of assumptions is just to set the stage, but the true stars are really the 2 speakers that we have here. And I'm going to call on Gita Hansen, please, if you could join us on video here. Gita is with Novonesis and has been working across the globe, I would say, and has some fantastic stories from what's unique about Gita as well is this breadth of experience across operations, quality food safety. So you can see your assumptions have really been interrogated, Gita. So I'm going to hand it over to you and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Lone. I'm very happy to be here today. So thank you for the opportunity. This is one of my passions. I love being part of a big manufacturing company, and I take it very seriously what we do. And I, like Lone said, I've been working within quality. I've been working within the production area. I've tried many different things. And what I have learned is that you always have to challenge your assumptions. You think something, but go check it and keep on learning and challenging, because that's how we improve over time. So let's start with some key takeaways. So if we take the next slide, I would like to share with you, before I go into details, I would like to share with you some of the things that I see as extremely important. And you will recognize what Lone just said. Because what I see when we talk about challenging our own assumptions or working with our own bias, or we can call it many different things, then we as leaders have a big task in how we engage in many ways. So I would say keep in mind that when we work with the data, as Lone said, you really need to work with the data for your manufacturing and how you are performing, but help make it tangible and translate it to people. So engagement on shop floor. I have used several occasions and still do engage with shop floor, and that could be, for example, like you see here on the picture. Go on shop floor, try to take some of the tasks that you ask others to do, and with your knowledge about what's happening inside some equipment or whatever it could be, then try to work around the equipment. You can have excellent discussions with people about the data, and it just makes a huge difference for them that you are there on shop floor, and it makes a huge difference for you in challenging your assumptions, that you can actually see what it takes to, for example, do cleaning on shop floor. So that's one of the things that I would like you to take as maybe a good advice or something that you can maybe do. How do you connect and engage on shop floor? Another thing I would like to also give you is this about how you lead, because as Lone said, we are many different stakeholders, we are many different people and functions adding up to producing food in a good way. And we have to acknowledge that it takes different things from one person to another to really engage and understand what we are working with. So this about, remember that you have a certain spot in the organization, but you need to help leading upwards to leaders, help them understand what it is that you're working with and how you can improve over time, all the time. And also with peers and with the organization, if you have some below, that you all the time engage and help conveying, as Lone said, what is it that we make decisions on, what are the data that we act on, and how do we all work together. The last thing that I would say is a key takeaway is this about, as Lone also alluded to, when we talk culture and food safety culture and so on, it's very much about how we also live it and breathe it and what we have around us. So this about having visuals, this about rewarding doing the right things and making sure that it's very clear how we make decisions. I see that as that's our culture, and using those tools every day, that's what, for me, I have found is really creating the food safety culture. But let's go a little bit into some of the details. So next slide, please. I'm from the company called Novonesis. It's an awesome company, and what we are doing is that we are making products that help other producers of, for example, food, producing in a sustainable way, and also making sure that we use the raw materials as best as possible. Novonesis is a combination of the company called Gita Hansen and Novozymes, and now we are all together Novonesis. We have many different products serving the food industries. We have, in fact, everything from the start. So you can say we produce products that are used on the field and help making good products like peanut, soy, whatever, different products from the field that goes into the food value chain. We also produce different products that are actually used throughout the process to make sure that, as I said, that, for example, you use the raw materials the best way, you get the optimal out of it, but also that the finished products like bread and so on stays fresh as long as ever, or as long as possible. And then with that, you reduce food waste. So we are Novonesis contributing to many parts of the value chain in producing food. So that's why it matters for us, Novonesis. It matters to have the right food safety culture and work with it all the time. If we take the next slide, then we have been on a journey, and we started actually back in 2017 to get a lot of different questions, and we could feel something changed because more and more customers, auditors, visitors in general, they start asking more about how do you actually work with training and with the culture part, so the behaviors and so on. We started to go into a kind of analysis phase where we looked at a comprehensive assessment on how are we doing these things, how do we make it very transparent, how we make decisions, how do we actually evaluate our food safety culture, and so on. And in 2020, we started a big program called Food Excellence, where we defined different tracks that we wanted to work with, and one of them was the food safety culture. So we started making a program for that one, and that simply made a step change in how we could make improvements in our organization. So since 2020, we've had a huge focus on this, and then we have refined it every year. When we then became Novonesis in the end of 23 and beginning of 24, we started, you can say, also this integration, integrating two companies and joining the food safety cultures. That's actually a huge take on, but also something that has really brought us a lot of new perspective and helped us challenge our assumptions, because, oh, we did like this in this company and we did in another way in the other company. So this about joining the two companies, taking the best and finding out what is it that we should do to make sure we have the best food safety culture, and we all the time work with continuous improvement. If we take the next one, then some of the things that I have learned, but also that we have learned in Novonesis, is that you can have big programs. It's really important. As I said, we started making a program for this food safety culture, and we started out talking a lot about compliance, but compliance doesn't create care, as I say here. So with that, I mean, you need the programs, but you also need it to be something that lives in all of us. No matter which role you have in the company, you need to think about food safety in everything you do. So big programs are good, but the compliance part and the science and the data and so on, you need to make it alive. Then, as Lone also said in the beginning, there are some assumptions this about, oh, but we clean so well and we heat things up and we boil it and it's good. No, it's not good enough. We need to do more than that. You need to think about what are the materials that goes in, and even you boil it, it doesn't necessarily take away allergens or whatever. You need that focus still. So this about challenging how we see things and what we used to do and what we do, and this is good for food safety. No, you need to challenge that all the time. And it takes time to start this in everyone, that you challenge your own mindset and ask yourself, is this good enough? So we have for sure learned in Novonesis that the engagement is what makes it effective. And the engagement, so that you need the programs, you need the systems, you need all these things, but the engagement in all levels of the organization, that's really what is making a big difference. And that's how I see we have succeeded quite well with building the food safety culture. Not that you ever, how can I say it, get done and now it's just done. I think it's something you have to work with it all the time. If we take the next slide, then some of the things that I really have seen making a change for many of us in Novonesis is this about not only talking about the food and all the processes and all the things we do in a very scientific way, but actually make sure that everyone can visualize, where is the product that I'm producing, where is this going to be used for the customer. So this about making sure that you have visuals of the products and how they are used is something that actually helped us zooming in on the use of the products and the intended use. This about discussing how the product is used, because one thing is it ends with a consumer, for example, like here eating some bread or burger, whatever. But it's also this, that you really understand how your customers are using the product and so on. And sharing that technical side also on shop floor really engage people, and it makes it, they get curious on how do our customers apply our products. So that's for sure one of the things that we have learned makes a difference. And then, of course, it's important is about what do we actually honor when we talk about food safety culture, and we talk about all the time challenging ourselves. It's important that you are good at saying this we did in a good way, or this particular individual did very well in a certain situation about thinking food safety culture. It means something for every one of us that we know exactly how we make a difference in our everyday work with producing food. And then, of course, I would also say what we also have learned is that you need standards. You need standards that help you design your facilities. Because again, there you have some assumptions. You think this is the good design, this is how we do it. But all the time continuously improving and work with that part and making standards for how you design the facilities. That's also something that we have for sure learned. And it sounds very, very simple, maybe what I'm sharing here, but I think the very important part is that every one of us know exactly how we impact, and sometimes we can forget a little bit about it because we make it very scientific and theoretical. And I think taking that part and making it very tangible and like I said in the beginning, on shop floor, that makes a huge difference. If you take the next slide, then this is just one of the pictures from a food safety day. I would say there are many, many different things you have to do to challenge your assumptions and all the time work with it, and also all the time make continuous improvements. We have for sure moved a lot on how we work with it in Novonesis. We have also found out that you need the framework. You need, of course, to have, how can I say, this is the area we play in. This is how we do different stuff. But you need to be patient when you then start introducing new procedures, new standards, and so on. And we have learned sometimes to small improvements, it all adds up, but the small steps are better than trying to make a very comprehensive or big program to really make a change. No, the small changes that we can do as individuals also makes a huge difference. So small steps are better than sometimes huge programs, because you get to implement it a lot faster. And then something that we can easily forget in everyday work, I think, is to celebrate the successes that we have. And when we make changes, really celebrate and encourage and recognize the efforts it takes to make a change. I think we will never get finished, or how to say it, working with our food safety culture and all the time challenging our assumptions as a company. We will keep on working on this, and we have so many good experiences now for how it actually changes everyone's mindset when you take in the many different tracks, like working with the hardcore design, working with your systems and processes, but most of all, also work with us as individuals, human beings, in how do we take care and make it present and tangible in all roles, how you impact food safety. I think that was a speedy way through some of my learnings and also some of the experience we have had in Novonesis. It's not always easy, but I can share with you, it's fun and it's really cool when you can feel that something is changing and you are moving to a new place where food safety is just getting more and more on top of everyone's mind. So yeah, that was a few words for me. And then I know now that Bob, you will share even more of your experience and help us all learn, because that's what we're here for, listen and learn. So over to you, Bob.
All right. Well, thank you, Gita. First, I want to start and thank the Stop Foodborne Illness Alliance for everything they do and all the different ways they partner with stakeholders around the globe, and specifically Vanessa for the efforts to put this series on and get a forum in which we can talk about culture and food safety and how we're doing this together around the world. My name is Bob Reinhard, and I lead food safety, quality, and regulatory affairs for Conagra Brands. For those of you that don't know Conagra Brands, we're a We're a house of 100+ different brands of products. Some of them are very historic and hundreds of years old, and other brands are brand new and micro brands that we're trying to innovate and drive rapid changes within a marketplace. With that, and with my role leading food safety, quality, and regulatory, we have to deal with all kinds of different facilities, all kinds of different cultures, all kinds of different assumptions around the world on what's right and how you should do things. And that really goes to understanding the assumptions that are underneath the iceberg. Because when it comes to food safety, it is the thing that could cause great damage. And when a supply chain breaks down, oftentimes it is not about the programs or even their compliance with regulatory. It is about the food safety assumptions and where systems failed and what people perceived to be the correct way to behave within a given circumstance and where they actually are. If we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We're about, and I'm sure lots of people on this call are the same, we're about making high quality foods. And we strive to do this across all the different processes and things we do through really state-of-the-art process control and technologies. But that brings with it people's different understanding about what those capabilities are. In addition, at Conagra Brands, we do responsible sourcing. We have an extensive network working on a better planet, and then a commitment to stronger facilities. If you think of any of our location within their communities, it isn't just about a manufacturing location and the 100 to the thousands of people that work there. That's about a community in which the assumptions within that community and the culture drive what we do. And Conagra, we deeply care about our employees and their communities because that is how we end up getting the culture that we desire out. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I'm going to start and I'm going to talk about something, and this is really important, and this is really important for people to understand as you go and grow in your career, and that is this. Everyone needs help. The reality is we all come in with a set of information and a way of thinking that is based off of our experiences, our education, our knowledge within a given topic. But underneath that, besides those things that you experienced, learn, and know, are the assumptions that come along with it. What is important? How do you behave in a given circumstance? What things do you put in place to manage risk? And if you think of food safety is not a state. It is not that you have a safe food and you have an unsafe food. But food safety is the management of risk and reducing the likelihood of its occurrence to an acceptable level. By nature, that in and of itself leads to assumptions. What is an acceptable risk level? What things do we put in place to reduce the risk to what we decide is acceptable? And then how do we behave around events that take place and our risk tolerance and assumptions associated with it? The reality is everyone has different experiences and understanding of why those things are set up and where they come from and what you should do. And so the way I like to say it is food safety is a team sport. You cannot do it by yourself. Everyone needs help. And that help is just not the professionals in food safety, quality, and regulatory, but an entire organization from executive leadership all the way down to all your hourly associates. Next slide, please. Some of the things that you have to do when it comes to food safety and understanding the underlying assumptions is to work to find out what is undercover and uncover the way people behave and why they behave it. If you look at my role, which is very different than many members of my team, where if you're an FSQA manager in a plant, you're dealing with one location. If you're in my role, you're dealing with hundreds. But there are assumptions across all of those locations or within different departments within a manufacturing facility in which people assume certain things need to occur and certain things are important, but they don't necessarily know how they go together. Whether that's a receiving dock employee understanding how a packaging department works, or it's the difference in the way a facility in Michigan behaves compared to a facility in Southern Texas. You really have to work to uncover what are the assumptions and how do people behave, and then do everything you can to shape those assumptions to a common unified culture that you would put together, which at Conagra we call RISE. Then, as you work towards that, you should always challenge your assumptions because they are never stagnant. There will always be new data and new observation, and the way people behave to certain things as you teach them should cause you to say, are we doing it the right thing, the way, and what should we do about it? And the last thing is to understand your cultural norms and recalibrate those back to a standard that strengthens food safety, drives trust and accountability. Um, as we put these things together, if we go ahead and go to the next slide, that leads me to understanding assumptions. Uh, the different consequences of food safety. Training doesn't equal understanding, right? Even though in this example it says training equals understanding, it doesn't, right? If it's not reported, it didn't happen. That's not true. Everyone knows the protocol. That's a common statement to me, and I'll talk about that in a minute. How do we know the facility behaved in that way? Because that is our procedure. Or we don't have time, or we've always done it this way, or all the different things. All of those statements should trigger, if you're leading food safety and quality, you to ask, what are the assumptions that go into this statement? You probably intuitively know they're not correct, but then how do you react to that, and how do you drive better outcomes and change assumptions? Next slide. That leads to, uh, um, go ahead and skip this one and go to the next slide, please. That leads to the idea of showing up. I am big about within a facility, when events happen from a corporate office, the importance of showing up and seeing what people are going through and what their teams are doing. Because you cannot get a picture of what's happening and an understanding of how to go about solving problems or produce food safely or know cultures unless you have been a part and on the ground with those people. So I like the idea of always showing up. Excuse me, if you work in a plant, that would be getting out on the plant floor, talking with employees, talking with them about what they do, understanding how things happen and why they happen the way they do, because it's not always how it's written. And if you have broader responsibility, getting into your locations and being a part of the community and the culture of that local facility. We can talk about culture broadly as an organization, and I think that is good. The reality is you have hundreds of cultures at every manufacturing locations within Conagra Brands and how they behave, what they do. It's critical that you understand it. And the only way you can is by showing up, being a part of it, and working through what are the assumptions and what are the things they have in place. What are their experiences? What do they know? What haven't they experienced that could cause something to go wrong? Next slide, please. So anyhow, the call outs then for today would be questioning norms, right? Making sure you collect feedback and you get insights into what's going on. You need to review your food safety practices, and that's often done through auditing or assessing. And you need to go to the point of implementation, not the written program and how it's supposed to work. I think with all auditing practices, there is a paperwork part to it. But the more important part is examples of when you had to escalate through the steps in the procedure. And does the organization understand and behave the way it's assumed within it? It might not be happening while you are auditing and visiting a facility. Oftentimes you have to go back and look at things that have happened in the past and then walk through the steps they took. And then the last thing is to observe people's behavior. Culture is really about, it is shown by what you do. That is your culture. And so you can't constantly do things against food safety and say you have a great food safety culture. I've heard that before. And it is awesome if you do get out, and you should get out, show up at the locations, observe the behaviors. And I have something I always tell my team, and that is go do great things. You don't have to be told or asked to do something to do great things. And if you ever get in a situation where you're not sure what to do, I always tell them just do what's right for humanity and it'll all work out. So thank you. I think that's my last slide, and we will go to Q&A.
Thanks so much, Bob. And if I can get Gita and Lone to turn their cameras on, we will jump into Q&A because I see a lot of questions coming in and a lot of chatting going on in the Q&A too, people answering each other's questions. So I think that's wonderful. Lone, I think you had a question that was spurred from some of the conversation from the panelists. Do you want to go ahead and ask that one while we read through the Q&A?
I would love to. And I don't know about everybody else on this webinar, but I am energized. I think Gita's and Dr. Bob's messages here are exactly what we were hoping to hear, and also great learning from both of you. So thank you so much. I think you have both talked about challenging continuous improvement, making sure that you don't accept status quo in your own words. But how do you go about challenging assumptions in a way that doesn't discourage people, that doesn't put people off? What are some of your ideas for how to best do that? I'm gonna.
I can start. That's fine.
I love when we have two speakers talking at the same time. That's good.
It's a great question, Lone, because the reality is when you go into a location and you start asking questions about why they do something and how they do something, and then ultimately that leads to, have you ever considered this, or have you ever thought about this? And it may be a situation where they're totally incorrect in what they're doing, but more likely it is a situation in which, based off of when they put that in place and the things they knew, they thought that that was appropriate, and there's an opportunity for continuous improvement. And so what I constantly tell my team, because we get in situations where it comes up all the time, particularly if I get involved, because then something is definitely going on, where we're going to say we're going to change practices. And what I always tell the team is, it isn't that your practices were not correct and you weren't doing good things. It is that we now know new information and have an opportunity to better enhance what we're doing and to reduce our risk to a level and understand more what the outputs are from the supply chain to achieve our goals. Do plants always react that way? No. They do care. They are passionate. If something doesn't go right, they feel bad about it. The reality is there are great plants all over my network and all over the world that have had bad things happen, that are still great people and great plants, and they then come up with a better way to do it. Oftentimes they change the rest of the world because they experienced something no one else did, and then we all copy. And so, Lone, that'd be the way I go about it. It isn't always easy, but that would be my approach.
If it was easy, Bob, we wouldn't be here. Gita, what about you?
Yeah, but I think it's a little bit similar. But what I always try to do, and what I also did when I was responsible for quality, is listening. We have to remember that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should listen double as much as we speak. And sometimes asking simple questions where you are a little bit just wondering about something, so people open up and share. Because as you said, Bob, mistakes, things happens everywhere. If you think they do not, or if you don't hear anything, it's not because they are not happening. Then it's because you don't get to know it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to build the trust with everyone in the organization, and that for sure I find you can do by asking questions and also make yourself available for maybe your own assumptions in how this happened are wrong. So listen to what they have to say and then make your conclusion.
I like both your answers, obviously, and I would just add one thing, and Bob, you talked about showing up. Gita, you talked about listening. I think we talk a lot about Gemba walks these days as just one of those very tangible tools that somebody can build into their systems and cultures. And just to remember that Gemba walks has nothing to do with inspections.
Absolutely.
It's not about gotcha moments. It's about going out and doing exactly what you both said: listen, ask, and then drive change by getting people to come with you. So thank you. Really appreciate both your answers. Vanessa, I know that you probably have another question for the panel here.
I do. Well, the most upvoted question right now is from Natasha, and she asks, what are some examples that could be shared about ways to honor or reward good behaviors related to food safety? And I'm going to amend the second part of the question, and how to spark curiosity about challenging your assumptions around food safety. And Bob, I think maybe you want to speak to the RISE program a little bit. We did have Danielle Richardson and Sean Fear on a year or two ago to talk about that. So maybe you have some updates you could share.
So sure. At Conagra Brands, we have a RISE program. It's called it's RISE, R-I-S-E, Reduce Incidents, Sustained Excellence. And where that sits and where we're taking that is across everything we do within Conagra Brands, because it applies to all parts of our business. It did start as a food safety quality program and driving culture, but it's gotten way broader than that, and we've expanded it out. Within it, there are all kinds of different parts and pieces, right? There's knowledge and skill development, in which we do boot camps and develop people up and give them different experiences, often outside of their normal work environment, and even experiences that are not directly related to their work environment, but can be applied over the techniques. And then it also has awards. Awards from local awards where people are recognized on a daily and weekly basis. Within the RISE program, to every period, we give awards out of my offices across the network, and then on a broader scale each quarter, and then annually we give awards at the executive leadership team for things people have done and put in place that have changed us and made us better. I think that awards are part of a bigger thing that really people want. And so I tend to look for the awards to play a part of your culture in this way. You need to have, in food safety and quality, a culture of appreciation for what people do every day. And recognition in an award is one way to do that, but appreciation in the moment, during the day, every day, day in and day out, when people make decisions that lead to the right outcomes for our consumers, and our consumers put their trust in us to make those right decisions, is critical. And so having a culture of appreciation, and then a culture of awards, and then a culture of development is really a part of what RISE is supposed to be, and how Conagra Brands goes about it.
And in Novonesis, we have something that is similar also, where you can come up with suggestions for one who should be awarded or recognized for a good, a special good thing that they did. But what we also use a lot, and what I actually find is a very good way to give rewards sometimes, is we give, you can say, lunches. So if it's one on a team who did something that was really special, but very often it comes with a team effort, right? So one might get the idea, but there are more to help out. So we often also give a lunch or something like that to a team. We can still highlight it was one maybe who took an initiative, but it was really with a team effort. It came home. So we do this with lunches. It's a little thing, but it also gives you then an opportunity to talk about what did we do, and it's just a little recognition. And we also, I would actually like to highlight an example. We were asked to come up with some examples. So like I showed, the first picture in my presentation was from what we call a deep cleaning day. So also, as Bob says, go show up. And what we sometimes do is we have these deep cleaning days where simply everyone, no matter your role, are invited to join on shop floor and clean. And I've participated several times, and that's just an excellent opportunity to do cleaning and understand the difficulties sometimes in actually doing all the cleaning, but also get a discussion and a dialogue with people there in the environment where we create all the food safe products, on what is it that we do, what can we do, and oh, maybe we could make an improvement over here, and so on. So I think this, as Bob calls it, show up, and I say engage on shop floor, it's exactly the same. You cannot sit in an office and make things happen on shop floor. You need to go on shop floor.
I love that, Gita. And Vanessa, if I could jump in with
please.
another perspective. So we had Kim Crawford from Birchwood Foods on in one of the previous webinars, and Kim talked about, I think we had Birchwood, the Birchwood pyramid of recognition. And what Kim talks about there is that she says, so at the top of the pyramid, you have those annual awards. In the middle, you have the monthly awards that might be very structured and systematized. At the bottom of the pyramid, you have the daily thank yous. And you can take an arrow and point it towards the bottom of the pyramid, and that's where you have the biggest impact on behaviors and assumptions. So I think both Bob and Gita has talked a lot about showing up and going out, listening with 2 ears and showing that we have one mouth, Gita. And I think that really makes sense to me, as for that you customize to some extent what is it that people value. I have a great colleague in Cultivate who used to be with some very large CPG companies, and at one point she'd gone over and beyond for food safety, and the recognition for her was an extra day off because she was a single mom. So that meant much more than, for example, a gift card to Amazon or something. And it really also just hits home that my leaders, my managers knows who I am, and they value who I am. I just want to also pick up on something in the chat from Rochelle, because your point is really well made, that the more we can reward teams as opposed to individuals, the more we get to influence the norms that you spoke about as well, Bob, because norms lives in groups. Norms are not something that evolves within the individual, it's something that evolves in groups. So the more you can reward and teams and have teams recognize teams, the stronger your challenging of the assumptions becomes as well, I would say. Are you okay, Vanessa?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm just reading through a lot of these questions, and it's wonderful. All the back and forth and the ideas. Lone, there's a lot in here about measuring, and I know that that's the topic for our next webinar, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But maybe we can give a couple of minutes to that, because there are so many questions. How do you think?
Yeah, why don't we? I mean, it's always something that people want to talk about. How do we measure both assumptions and culture? I'm going to get on my angry box, so I am sorry.
Go for it.
My angry box is around the survey. The survey that has not been validated. It's a survey that you might have designed internally in your company. I respect every single one of you that's on this webinar for everything you bring. I'm not thinking that many of you are social scientists, and therefore developing a survey where you take 15 questions that you think are the right ones, you put that out to your company and your team members and colleagues, is not the way to go. Surveys in themselves have a ton of response bias as well. So think about this instead. You have so much data that you collect already. You have engagement surveys. You have all of your food safety data. You have focus groups potentially that you're doing with your team members as well. Look at everything you gather intel on today, and then see if you can't find a way to pull information out of those data as for where your culture is at today and how your assumptions are. You have a gold mine in most cases that you're sitting on already. So I would just encourage you to think about that. And then show up for some of these. So the mentorship program in Stop Foodborne Illness discussed Gemba walks the other day and measurements as well. So there's an opportunity there. Show up for some of these events where you can really see what other companies are doing as well. So that's just, I'm off my soapbox. I'm happy again, Vanessa.
And maybe we can kick it over to Bob and
Love
Gita.
it.
Are there any ways beyond a survey that you found where you can measure these assumptions and kind of see if you're making any progress in a direction you want to go that are outside of a survey?
Vanessa, I feel like Lone teased me to have to join next time, and understand what we need to do. We all do collect tons of outcome-based data, right? On food safety, on quality, on everything you can imagine within an organization. And so I love the idea of using that then to say, how does that come together and what does that say about your culture? And so I'm going to go with I can't wait to hear what Lone tells us next time. And see if Gita has anything different, because I'm really interested.
Yeah, I think communication of data is maybe something where I would like to improve, because yeah, we collect so many data and we do so much, but do we actually communicate them? And do we use them to tell stories about what we all the time need to improve and continuously have to invest in? Or is it just something that we use for an internal analysis and in a very office matter? So I think what I recently learned from my organization is that sharing with the employees exactly how the products are used that you produce, and how it's applied and so on. That's something that spurs this curiosity we also talked about, and maybe communicate a little bit more is actually very important. That is at least something that I have found, that sometimes we have an assumption that, oh yeah, we know how our products are produced or used, and we know, oh yeah, over there we need to clean a little bit extra and so on. But do we, or is it just something that we think? So I would love to work in Novonesis a little bit more with communicating the many data we have, and make sure that we all know about the data and what we see. Example could also be customer complaints. Do we just, I mean, we all have those, even then we would like to have nothing, but I mean, to be honest, we all have some customer complaints. Do we actually share that broadly enough? Because that's very often a place to start learning and so on. So I would say it's all the data. Yeah, we use them in many ways, but do we use them enough to communicate? Because that can help change mindsets upwards and downwards in the organization.
Yeah. And I think if you, sorry.
Go ahead, Lone. I think we have time for one final thought or question.
Should we hear from our speakers? Final thoughts from, maybe we start with Gita, then go to Bob, and then we can, what do you think, Vanessa?
I love that.
We're sort of flying by the seats of our pants.
I know.
We've got Conrad, our friend, on here, so.
Yeah. I don't remember. I think it was a comment also I saw in the Q&A that, I mean, we never ever end working with our food safety culture. It's something we have to do all the time. And I think sessions like this, the discussions in groups and so on, that's exactly what we need. Because we can all learn from each other. So be a little bit humble also. I think that really suits us well in working with food safety culture. And I think also when I look at the organization that I'm part of, going through the combination of two companies, oh gosh, that has learned me a lot. Because then you have to see things in a different way. And we cannot make mergers all the time to learn. That's not what I say, but be curious and maybe go work with other companies and go visit other companies and try to understand what they are doing. That also helps us improve and understand, things can be done in a different way, or just get inspired. So I think sometimes we try to invent the wheel a little bit over and over again, where we can actually gain a lot from just go visiting each other and dare to open up and share some of the things that, this was not good. I want to learn. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think that I'll say this and close out with first of all, for everyone in this call, I thank you. You're on this call, I know, because you're passionate about food safety. And that means that despite the challenges and the struggles and everything that you're trying to do at any level, whether it's on an individual person-to-person level or it's internationally, globally, in a large leadership role, you're doing great things that are changing the world, because consuming food is what all humans do. And being safe when that occurs is something that everyone wants to happen, at all levels of all organizations, and just normally, because that's the right thing. And so I thank you for that. Continue the journey, continue to learn as you come up with new things, share them because it's helpful for everyone. But to take the time and to join this call, thank all of you that have participated. And again, thank you, Stop, for putting this on. I think it's wonderful.
Well, and thank you to our esteemed panel for joining today. And Lone, thank you so much for helping me moderate and dig through the questions in the Q&A. We have quite a few that we didn't touch on, so we will get those over to our presenters. We're also going to write up a white paper about this webinar and all of the wonderful learnings, and we'll have that posted on the Stop website as soon as it's ready. I did want to alert everyone that our next webinar will be December 17th. We're going to have Joan Menke from Van Drunen Farms and Greg Pritchard from Nestle join us to talk about measuring the power of declared values. So please make sure to register and join us for that event. And when you clicked out of this webinar today, please take the survey that's at the end, because we do take that feedback seriously and we use it to improve these webinars for you all. So thank you so much. And we will see you back here in November or December. Sorry.
Time flies. Thank you,
Yes.
Vanessa.
Thank you all. Do great things.
Thank you.